Before we assign our planning textures, let's always choose the default view, which is Standard View 2, the top view. Now we switch to the tool group Visualize, where we can assign a camera. I click on the camera tool, can select a viewpoint here, and a viewing direction. In the next step, I can adjust the viewing direction angle by activating the tool here. With the tool activated, I can slightly increase the angle. I have the options for eye level and viewpoint height. Now with a double click, I execute the camera movement. During camera editing, I can change the distance. For example, I can adjust the distance here. I can also set it to load the volume model directly. Then I confirm by clicking OK. At this point, it should be mentioned that the setting in the Document tab under Show, Model Limit, is relevant. Here, I can define whether, for example, zooming with the mouse wheel has an effect on the camera. With the model limit, I can comfortably adjust my view. On the other hand, if I undo the whole process and haven't enabled model limiting, when I zoom, I'll need to undo it again. It behaves in a way that I can move the view directly. However, if I don't have model limiting turned on, when I zoom, I have to undo it again. Because it will be like a direct zoom. Then it is, in fact, like this. The model is directly affected by the zoom. If I zoom here and switch to View 2, Plan View, the camera will also be adjusted. Switch back to editing and here on Representation Type, Volume Model, and now I can tackle the textures. Here, I can define which class the respective objects belong to. I could make a selection here, for example. With the Shift key pressed, I can make multiple selections here. With the Control key and the letter W for wireframe, I can switch to the wireframe model, or alternatively, use the menu command here to select these cabinets. Now I have the attribute class field and here I write, for example, over cabinet. Similarly, I select the attribute class lower cabinet. And now, for the lower cabinet, in the Component Information tab, under Textures, I can, for instance, choose a texture from Architect. I'll select a texture here, just trying something out, then copy all of this down and confirm with OK. Then I can see the result in the volume model. In the wireframe model, I now select the other cabinets, and here it's interesting that it is sufficient to have one cabinet activated now because the result will then apply to all objects with the same attribute class. So, when I make the assignment here again and confirm with OK, I now have this texture applied to all components. Now the question is, how can I assign a different texture to an individual object? Because, if I go here to Component Information, Assign, and specify that the smooth door should have a different material, it will affect all objects. There are several possibilities here. One option would be not to choose doors in the front design category. Instead, I want to choose panel here. The panel has its own class again, so under component information, I can simply specify that the panel, for example, smooth, is actually a mirror or glass. The other option, if I switch back to doors, would be to create a separate attribute class, like upper cabinet glass, for example. Now that we have our own classes, I can, of course, go back to assigning complete assignments here under component information, and then simply choose something different for the front. The rotation of the texture can also be done in component information. Here, for the classic smooth drawer, I can apply a 90-degree rotation to the texture. Under component information, I can define a separate texture for each component. I can now change the material used in the active drawing. To do this, I can narrow down the search to textures and then have this material displayed here, which I can now edit. In this editing section, for example, I could define an object color. Let's pick a color, and we'll see that everything gets colored accordingly.